What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG TCG video. Today, guys, we are going to be going over the new Lyrilusc support set to be released in the next Legendary Duelist set. I am very excited to be getting into this new set of cards with you guys, because not only are the Lyrilusc one of my favorite, it's actually my favorite deck out of the four Bracelet Girls. I mean, the Lyrilusc monsters look so cool. Reticle Starling actually being my favorite. Yes, I know that didn't appear in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 anime, but still think it's really cool. Assemble Nightgown, Independent Nightgale, and even the three little ones. I think they look so cool. Becoming one of my favorite decks of all time. I really do like the decks, especially with the new deck that's been showing up in the meta game, because for people that don't know, Lyrilusc has been a part in the meta game as they are involved with the deck called Bird Up. Now, for people that don't know what that is, it's basically a deck combined of Tri-Brigades and Lyrilusc, and basically go around a whole strategy involving the Wind Barrier statue, which is a really cool deck. I would go online and check it out. It's such a cool deck. I really do like how this deck works. I kind of want to play it for myself, to be completely honest, but I'm really excited to see what this set will do for the Lyrilusc. Will it boost them more, or will it not just do anything and Bird Up will stay the same as they always been? Who really knows? But without further ado, let's not waste any more time and let's get right into it. So we're going to be doing in the style as we always do. We're going to do monsters first in the extra deck, then we're going to do spell and trap cards, just how we always done it. So the first card we're going to be going over is Lyrilusc Barrel Canary. It's a level 1 Wind Winged Beast effect monster with 0 attack and 200 defense. Typical for Lyrilusc monsters, they always have low attack and defense points. In some cases, they don't have any attack points, so not surprised that these are on the lower side. And you can only use the first effect of this card's name once per turn, so you can use the second effect multiple times. Very interesting. If this card is in your hand, you can target one Lyrilusc monster in your graveyard, special summon this card and that target, but you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except Xyz monsters. So this is just an easy Xyz summon, because you can just special summon this card. If you have a Lyrilusc in your graveyard already, you can special summon this card and that Lyrilusc and go into an immediate assembled Nightgown or one of the other Xyz monsters that we might be going into later on in this video. So that's actually really good. That's an easy Xyz summon right there. Now, yes, it does lock you into Xyz plays, but it doesn't mean that you can't do other plays like Link summoning plays, Synchro summoning plays, Fusion summoning plays, depending on what your starting hand might be or what your hand is during the duel. You can do those plays first, and then you can use this effect. So, yeah, it doesn't fully lock you out of this. It does suck that it does lock you into it regardless. So if you wanted to specifically go into Xyz plays for a reason, then go into Fusion, you can't do that. So, very interesting there. And then the second effect is a Wind Xyz monster that was summoned using this card on the field as material gains this effect. Gains 200 attack, also possession cannot switch. That's a very interesting effect. I don't think we really see cards with an effect that makes it to where a monster can't switch positions on the field. So if someone tries to, and I know this card is banned, but I'm just going to use it as an example just in case you're playing this casually. Change of Heart, very iconic card. If you try to change a heart, an Lyrilusc assembled Nightgown that was used with Barrel Canary, you can't do that. It's negated because the position cannot be switched, so you basically waste your change of heart because you can't actually change the position. Not really useful to these standards. Normally people don't play effects that switch the position of a card, but if that started to be more prevalent, this card is definitely going to be helpful with that effect. But in today's standards, not really the best. And 200 attack points is not that much, especially since with Lyrilusc monsters being so low in attack points. If it was 300 to 500, I would have liked it a little bit more. 200 is not the worst, but the second effect is definitely the lacking part of this card. It's not a bad effect. It's a unique effect that you don't normally see, but probably you're not going to really be seeing this effect used that much. because the 200 attack points is not really going to do anything. I mean, with Assembled Knight Count, hey, that's 200 extra points of damage for the direct attack, because that's how Assembled Knight Count works, is that it can attack directly. So 200 attack points, not that much, but at least it's something, I guess. So not really a bad card. I definitely like the first effect a lot more, being able to go into an easy Xyz summon with the two monsters, or the way it is with summoning this monster and a monster from your graveyard. Really like this effect. I do think this is actually a pretty solid card. So pretty good start so far, if I would have to say anything. And the other Lyrilusc effect monster that we have is Lyrilusc Celeste Wagtail. It's a level 1 Wind-Winged Beast effect monster with 200 attack and 0 defense, basically switching Barrel Canary's attack and defense points with this monster, or vice versa, which when Konami release some products, sometimes they will do this where the attack and defense points of two monsters will be switched for the other monster. So not really surprised that they did it for this one as well. And you can only use the first and second effect of this card's name once per turn each. If this card is special summon, you can add one Lyrilusc spell and trap card from your deck to your hand, which we'll get into a little bit later if this effect is going to be really worth getting those. I think it's one spell card and one trap card. Those are the only Lyrilusc spell and trap cards that we actually have in the card game. So we'll see a little later on if those cards are worth searching off of Wagtail. And then if this card is in your graveyard, you can target one Lyrilusc Xyz monster you control, attach this card to it as material. That's actually a really good effect, because the whole gimmick of Lyrilusc is putting a whole bunch of overlay units onto the Lyrilusc monsters. Like, for example, Assembled Knight Gown gains attack for each overlay unit and can attack directly equal to the number of overlay units or Xyz materials for the card game standards that is attached to that monster. So basically, you get a free Xyz material to equip to that monster. Not only will it gain attack points, but it will get another attack and also another negation from monster destruction, from just being destroyed by battle. So that's actually a really good effect, a very useful effect. I would be very surprised if this card is not used in the Lyrilusc deck. I would say this one, I don't know, because the other one's first effect was pretty good as well. This effect is really good as well, and again, we'll know if this card is better than its other one that we got when we actually get to the spell and trap cards to see how good this card is, because the second effect is good, but we'll see if the first effect is good. I mean, being able to search the Lyrilusc spell and trap card, if they're good, then this is going to be a pretty good card for the Lyrilusc monsters. And I can definitely see this being played in a Lyrilusc deck, even in Bird Up, I do believe. So, very, very excited to see what this card does for Bird Up, if it actually does make its way into Bird Up. And now we're going to be getting into the Xyz monsters in this deck. So the first one we're going to be going over is the one that we actually have already seen. A while back, we actually saw the artworks for this card, the Crystal Clearwing Synchro Dragon, and Sherry's new ace, which I have not covered yet. I'll cover hers at another time. But we got the announcement of these three cards when the Legendary Duelist set was first released. And I will say this, out of the three monsters that we got, this one was my favorite. I really love the design. This is becoming one of my favorite Lyrilusc monsters. I think it looks so sick. I think it looks really cool. And although the other two gave it a run for its money, definitely was my favorite one out of the bunch. Its name is Lyrilusc Assembleu. It's weird because on Yugioh, it has brackets around the U, so I don't know if it's like wants you to say the U in it or not. I don't know. It's a really weird name. I'm gonna call it Assembleu, just saying that the U is there. But if it's assembled, I guess that can work as well. Let me know which one it is. If it's assembled, don't put the U in there. If it is, just put the U in there. But I'm going to call it Assembleu just for this video. So it's Lyrilusc Assembleu Robin, a rank 1 Wind-Winged Beast Xyz effect monster with 0 attack and 0 defense. Common for the Lyrilusc Exceeds monsters, and its materials is 2 or more level 1 monsters. Its first effect is it gains 500 attack for each material attached to it, which is common with Lyrilusc monsters in terms of gaining attack points based off of their overlay units. I think this is the most attack points that a Lyrilusc monster gains from any of the Lyrilusc Exceeds monsters specifically. I know Independent Nightingale also gains 500 attack points per level because of that whole thing. Depending on what its fusion summon, it gains attack points based off of the level of the monster. So yeah, and then obviously you have like Assembled Nightingale, which gains 200 attack, and then the other one gains 300 attack, but that one, it can be to any card. Like, it chooses which target is going to gain 300 attack points for Exceeds material. I'm so used to the anime saying overlay units. Sorry about that. And then the second effect is if your opponent special summons a monster or monsters, you can detach one material from this card, then target one of those monsters, return it to the hand. Wow. Now, I'm actually not going to... I want to save that one for a second because I want to talk a little bit about that effect, actually. So let's go into the third one real quick. If this card in your possession is sent to your graveyard by an opponent's card, you can target one other Lyrilusc monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. Okay, so if this card gets destroyed, basically you can get another resource, that way you can go into your plays again. I can see where Canary actually would be really useful in this case, because if this monster gets destroyed and Canary is in your graveyard, you can just get that card back, use its effect, special summon that card in another one of your Lyrilusc monsters, like maybe like a Sparrow, something like that. That way you can actually get a search off of it. Then you can go into another Exceeds summon play. That's actually not that bad of an effect, but the second one is the biggest effect on this. This effect is really good. Not only is it just a good way to pop monsters off of the field, but this is not a once per turn effect. Not a soft, not a hard. It does not have a once per turn effect. How in the world does it not have that? You know, it's weird because you're used to cards these days having a once per turn effect. The last monster we went over literally not that long ago has once per turn effects on it. I think every card that I've went through since I've started doing these OCG TCG videos, I think every card has at least had a once per turn effect, and if it didn't, it's not a really good effect. So it's very interesting they decided not to have a once per turn effect on this card, and for the reason for that, for people that might not know why, is because, or at least in my opinion, I don't think Konami really wants to do non-once per turn effects because Konami's not dumb. They know that if they don't put a once per turn effect on a card, there is a good chance that it can get abused. For example, think of Firewall Dragon. Firewall Dragon had no once per turn effects on either of its effects. And guess what? That card got banned because it was used in an FTK and then got errated. So the fact that this card does not have a once per turn effect, either Konami just completely slipped on this one and didn't even realize that they didn't put a once per turn effect on it, or they thought, oh, this card wasn't really that good that it didn't need a once per turn effect. But I would say that was a bad move on Konami on that part, because this is a good effect, because if you can get 2 Exceeds materials on this card, that's 2 monsters you can pop. And with the Wingtail graveyard effect, you can actually use that monster, gain yourself an extra overlay unit or Exceeds material, whatever you want to call it, and then you have 3 monsters you can pop. You get 2 of these monsters, potentially 4. This is just insane. Like, this is really surprising that they actually have a card that will pop monsters without a once per turn effect. This is definitely the best card we've gone over so far, easily. Like, the other 2 cards were not that bad, but compared to this, just that effect alone, I think, beats the other 2 easily. I am very happy with this card, and I will say this much: Lyrilusc deck, Bird Up deck, whatever it's going to be, they are going to definitely use this card, whether that be at 1, whether that be at 2, or whether go the full power of 3. I would actually be very surprised if you don't run 3 copies of this card, but very, very impressed with this card. Kind of actually now scared to kind of look at the other Xyz monster. This is the first Xyz monster we went into, and there's another one that we have to go over. I don't know if that one's going to be better than this one. I'm actually kind of nervous now, so let's just stop wasting time and let's actually look into it. So the other Xyz monster for the Lyrilusc monsters is Lyrilusc Prom Thrush. It is a rank 1 Wind-Winged Beast Xyz effect monster with 0 attack and 0 defense. Its materials are 2 or more level 1 monsters, and its first effect is it gains 500 attack for each material attached to it, which is literally the same effect as the last one we just went over. So this actually makes it a tie for the most attack points gained from an Xyz monster's effects. And its second effect is once per turn. Oh, so this is actually going to have a once per turn. Soft once per turn, might I add, so you can summon multiple copies of this card and use the effect still. You can detach one material from this card, then target one spell or trap card your opponent controls. Shuffle it into the deck. Shuffling it into the deck, it's an okay effect, shuffling it to the deck. I mean, I guess it's kind of removal. I kind of wish it might have got destroyed or banished. Well, to be fair, maybe banished might be a little bit too good because now they can't use the card anymore. And sure, they can't use the card, but they can just redraw the card back, especially with decks these days. You know, there's a good way to search the card back to your hand. There's spell and trap cards or even monster effects, actually, that actually can get spell and trap cards. I mean, even one of the effects of the Lyrilusc monsters, the Wagtail, could search that, so yeah, I mean, it's an okay effect, but I wish it either got destroyed or was banished. Banished would be great, but maybe that would have been a little too good. And its third effect is, at the start of the damage step, if another of your monsters battles, you can detach any number of materials from this card. Your battling monster gains 300 attack for each material detached until the end of this turn. Okay, so the best way I can see this effect being useful is summoning this card and giving more attack points to Assembled Nightingale, because the cool thing with Assembled Nightingale is that it can attack directly. So let's give this an example. Say you have an Assembled Nightingale and 2 Prom Thrusts, and again, with this being a soft once per turn, you can activate both of their effects once. So you have your Independent Nightingale attack, you activate their effects, that monster gains 300 attack points for each material detached. So let's just make this very easy. Let's just say each of the monsters has 2 Xyz materials to it. So you detach those 2 Xyz materials, it gains 1200 attack points thanks to 300 times 2 from the first one, which would be 600. Same thing with the other one, so you get 1200, and then you add the 200 attack points for the 2 overlay units, or Xyz materials. Man, I'm so used to the anime and calling them overlay units. You get the 2 Xyz materials, that would be 400 since it gains 200, so you got 1600 attack points of direct damage, not including that you can also attack your opponent directly equal to the number of Xyz materials that you have. So, if Assembling Nightingale has 2 Xyz materials and can attack twice. So with 1600 attack points, that's 3200 points of damage that you can just deal in one turn. That's not that bad. That's almost half your opponent's life points. And that's not including the fact that you can have Wagtail to get back another Xyz material. You can add on Assemble Nightingale, and that would give it 3 overlay or Xyz materials, and then that would make it to not only have 3 attacks, but it would get 200 extra attack, which would be 1800, which I would believe that would be 5400 points of damage dealt, which is a lot. That is a lot of damage. That's over half of your opponent's life points in just one attack. So I think that's probably the best way you're going to be able to use this card. I guess you can use it with Independent Nightingale as well, because it doesn't specifically target Xyz monsters. So I could see it as a pretty cool tech card that you can use to help a monster gain attack points for like a big push or something like that. Though I feel like to gain the most out of it, you're probably going to have to run multiple cards, because with the 2 examples that I had, it gated to 1200 attack, while if you just did it normally with this like one monster, that would be only 600 attack points, which is still better than what Assembled Nightingale would already have. And this is also, by the way, just a simplified example that you could probably pull off on your second turn. So if you are able to get a lot of Xyz materials on an Assembled Nightingale and use these cards and give a little extra attack points, you might be able to get into a game state because of these extra attack points. who really knows? And with the whole gimmick of Lyrilusc, I see it very possible to make a very big push with a lot of damage dealt because of being able to regenerate Xyz materials back into your Lyrilusc monsters. So I don't think that's honestly that bad of an effect. It's not as good as the Synchro Robin. I don't believe so, but I think this is still a pretty solid card in my opinion. But now let's get into the spell and trap cards for this deck. And these ones I'm very excited to get into. And the first of the spell and trap cards we're going to be going over is the continuous spell card, Lyrilusc Bird Sanctuary. Its effect is you can only use the first and second effect of this card's name once per turn each. Its first effect is you can target 2 winged beast Xyz monsters you control. Attach one of them and all materials attached to it to the other as material. Okay, that's actually pretty cool. So, an example, there's actually 2 examples I can see from this. You can say you have 2 Assemblu Robins on the field. You can use, and we'll do it in a simplified, they have 2 Xyz materials each. Actually, let me read the second effect real quick before I go into this example. If you control an Xyz monster with 3 or more materials, you can draw 1 card. Actually, this just makes this scenario a whole lot better. This actually doesn't change it at all. So, what's very cool about this is that, like, if you have the 2 Assemblu Robins on the field, use all the materials for that monster to pop 2 monsters on the field, use this card, attach the material to the other monster, then you can use the draw effect to draw 1 card because you would fit the requirement of 3 or more materials. Then use the other Assemblu Robin's effect to be able to pop 3 more monsters. So you could pop 5 monsters on the field plus draw 1 card. That's good. I really do think that's really, really good. And again, not including Wagtail. If Wagtail's not one of the materials, you can get that material and make drawing the card easier. Actually, you can probably draw the card before you even use the first effect. But you could potentially pop 6 monsters if Wagtail is not one of the materials already on it. Well, I guess it could be a material, but you didn't use the effect to add it as a material is what I'm saying. So that's pretty good. That's basically wiping your opponent's entire board, because normally an opponent gets 1 extra monster zone and then you have his main extra monster zones. Well, it gets 2 if it performs an extra link, which you don't really see extra links these days because they don't really matter, especially in this deck. It wouldn't really matter unless you're going with more link plays, but that's a really, really solid card. I really like that. That's making Wagtail's effect very, very promising because of it being able to search spell and trap cards. This I can see as a spell card you would be searching, and this is a continuous spell, so this stays on the field. So even if you don't want to go for a big push, say they only had 2 monsters on the field, you will still have a monster with 3 materials on it, so that if they don't get rid of your materials or get rid of the monster itself, you're just going to keep drawing cards. So that's actually pretty solid. Another thing you could do with this as well is it's an easy way to give Semblin Nightingale a lot of Xyz materials. Again, I'm doing that with the anime. I'm so used to them saying overlay units. But you attach a bunch of Xyz materials, say the example I had earlier, but we'll just shorten it down a little bit. Say each of them had 3 Xyz materials on the card. You use this effect, and you can attach the card into it. Now it has 6 Xyz materials on it, meaning that your opponent has to go and try to find a way to get rid of all the overlay units because it can't not be destroyed or targeted by effects. So they have to try to get rid of all the Xyz materials before they can actually get rid of Assembling Nightingale. And if they don't, and you still have 3 or more Xyz materials, you can draw a card. I really see this being a really good card. Definitely a card I expect to be added as well. So, spell and traps, very promising with the spell card. But now let's get into the trap card. And actually the final card for the Lyrilusc monsters. And that card is Lyrilusc Birds of a Feather. I swear that sounds like a Blackwing card. I don't know why, but that sounds like a Blackwing card. It's a normal trap card, and you can only use the first and second effects of this card's name once per turn each. Its first effect is target 1 Lyrilusc monster you control, change the attack of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls to that target's. Also, their levels and ranks become 1. Oh, that's actually not that bad of an effect. That really screws Synchro and Xyz plays, because the thing is, they're so reliant on the levels because whether you're going into an Exceed summoning or a Synchro summoning, heck, even if you're going up for a rank up magic, this can actually disrupt that as well. In fact, I think this does disrupt rituals as well, because if you mess with the levels, they're going to have to try to find a way to either waste more resources trying to get that monster that they're trying to go, which might screw them up in the end, or they have to forcefully end their turn because they're not going to be able to do anything because the levels of the level and ranks of the monsters change. Now, if you're going up against a Link deck in particular, you're not going to really see much of this card. In fact, probably people won't use it because it doesn't really matter. But if you're going against a more Synchro and Exceed-based deck, this is going to hose them down easily in just one card because of the whole level changing. It's so good for that case. Sure, it's a little bit situational because you have to be going against Synchro and Exceed. I mean, it doesn't even affect Fusion either. I guess we'll get in all the mechanics in there because Pendulum don't affect that, or I guess more Tribute Summoning, because it doesn't affect pendulum scales. If that thing affected pendulum scales, that would be busted, but honestly, pendulums are not really a thing anymore. Pendulums kind of died, but it doesn't affect fusion really that much. I guess if you're going to try to fusion summon and try to go into a synchro play, I guess that would make it bad, because I know there are some like fusion tuners I guess you can use if you're playing a deck like that. I'm just doing a whole bunch of examples with this card, so that's not really bad. And we're not even into the second effect, so pretty solid start. Its second effect is when an opponent's monster declares an attack on your Lyrilusc monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Your battling monster's attack becomes the same as the opponent's monster until the end of the turn. Interesting. So I guess this just saves you from damage. I don't think, unless you already have protection on your monster, like you can probably have protection on your monster to where it can't be destroyed by battle, but if you don't, I guess it's mutual destruction, because the thing is that this would mitigate how Lyrilusc work, because it gains the same amount of it gains attack until your monsters is the same as your opponent's. So the whole thing where it gains 500 attack points for each overlay unit or Exceed material is null and void. You can't really use that. It doesn't affect it with this card, or at least it doesn't seem like that. So even if you activate this and you have Exceed materials on the card, it's still going to be equal. It doesn't still gain you attack points to where it will be over that. If that did it, that would actually be pretty good, because now that actually makes it to where your opponent is going to lose the battle because they can't get over it because of the Exceed materials. But sadly, that's not how really it works. It basically negates the whole first effect if you use this trap card. So I guess it's an okay card. I only see this card for if it gets, or I guess if you're going to take damage, that's what it would be. If you're going to take damage, like massive damage because of them being low attack points, you can just banish this card from your graveyard, which thankfully is just a banishing effect. If this was like on-field activation, I don't think it would be as good, but banishing this from your graveyard to save yourself from damage, not really that bad, especially since Lyrilusc have such low attack points. I mean, their base attack point stat is 0. So if you don't have any Exceed materials on the card, you're going to take a whole bunch of damage. So this trap card, although it doesn't save your monster, it will save you from a massive amount of damage. So I like that card for that reason alone, just because of the fact that it saves you from a whole bunch of damage. But that is going to be it for the Lyrilusc support. We also know that there's going to be some reprints in the set as well. I think we're getting every single one except for 2. We're not getting Turquoise Warbler and Independent Nightingale, the fusion monster, which not surprised on that one, because with the way they were presenting these cards, they seem like the Lyrilusc monsters are going to go more towards the Exceed engine, so putting Independent Nightingale in it doesn't really make sense. Sad that we don't see the card, because I think it's a really good card, but we're not getting it. Also, Turquoise Warbler, that one is a real surprise to me, because we're getting Cobalt Sparrow and we're getting Sapphire Swallow, but not Turquoise Warbler. I don't know why they decided not to give that card a reprint. I have really no idea, but I guess that's what they decided. Maybe on space there are some other cards maybe they want in there and they couldn't fit that card in there, so maybe that's the case. I really have no idea. But that is it for the Lyrilusc support. What are my thoughts on it? I think this is some really good support for these cards, for the Lyrilusc deck. These are some promising cards, whether you're going to play Bird Up, whether you're going to play just a pure Lyrilusc, because with these cards, it makes it possible just to actually be a Lyrilusc deck, because the reason why you don't really see a Lyrilusc deck is because there wasn't enough cards. I mean, literally, you only had 3 monsters. Like, the most Lyrilusc monsters you can have in a deck is 6. And then the other 34 cards would just be random stuff in there. And then you had 2 Xyz monsters in there. But with, oh, actually, no, it's 9, excuse me, because you would have 3 Cobalt Sparrow, 3 Swallow, and then 3 Turquoise. So that's 9, excuse me. But now you have 2 more monsters, which upgrade that to 15, plus spell and trap cards, which if you want to run 3 copies of those, that gets you to 21 cards, half of your deck, which then you can add some, like, hand traps into your, deck as well. You can have some, like, type of negation for your opponent's board as well, maybe some protection to your Lyrilusc monsters with their low attack points. You can feasibly make a pure Lyrilusc deck, which is really, really cool. I'm really glad to see that. Will it be as good as Bird Up? I don't think so, but maybe you can build something out of that. But the cards in this set are good. Probably the most impressive card was the Semblue Robin. I think that was probably the best card. Not saying that any of the other cards were bad. I think all the cards were pretty solid. I think probably the weakest one out of the entire set was the other Xyz monster. But I still think it has potential. I just feel like with that card in particular, you're going to have to try to play around it and try to test it out to try to see what the best optimal route for that card is to actually import into deck, because the example I gave, that's just something I thought on the top of my head. You guys could probably come up with something a lot more better that actually makes the card really good. The way I made it seemed like it was just an okay card, but other than that card, I think every other card, the spell and trap cards were very impressive. Wagtail and Canary were really impressive as well. I definitely liked Wagtail the most in terms of the main deck. Just being able to get back your materials onto your Xyz monsters, I think is good. And even Canary is just an easy rank 1 Xyz play. Very easy, because you just summon that card in another one and boom, you already got one of your Lyrilusc on the field. So very good cards from the main deck as well to go with the Cobalt Sparrow and Sapphire Swallow and Turquoise Warbler. And let me add all 3 of them into that as well. But very impressed with these cards. And I will just say this as well. I'm very glad that Rin and Rory both have gotten support. For people that don't know, Rin actually did get support in Blazing Vortex with their Wind Witch monsters. It was the same set with Chaz's new Armed Dragon, so that was pretty cool as well. And just to see how relevant these cards are being, for people that don't know, I mentioned that Rory's deck was part of a Bird Up deck, which has actually seen meta play. Wind Witches have actually seen some play as well in Invoked of all things, which is actually pretty cool. So the fact that seeing these cards in the actual meta game is really, really cool. It makes me happy, because these 2 characters in particular, Rin and Rory, got the very horrible treatment in Arc 5. They didn't even have one duel in the anime where they were not brainwashed. And it was so sad. We didn't even see them in person until season 3. What the heck? Like, we had seen them in flashbacks, but we didn't actually meet Rory or Rin until season 3, and the entire time they were brainwashed, and before you really could get a chance to have them do anything, they were dead. They died literally after the whole dueling that they had, because Leo Akaba ended up getting them into the pods for Arc 5, and then they became Rey, and then obviously we know what happened at the end of Arc 5 if you watch the Arc 5 anime. So the fact that they're getting support, it's really, really cool. And also, I will just say this as well, Arc 5 has gotten a lot of support in these recent sets. You know, with there no anime being based around the main duel, like the main Master Rule formats, it gives a lot of potential for these older decks to get support. Like, I never thought Sherry was going to get support. I never thought Chaz was going to get more support. I didn't think Shun would get support. But in these sets, they're getting support. In fact, we have 6 representatives of Arc 5 in these sets. You know, you got Yugioh and Shun with Phantom Rage. Then you have Yugioh and Rui, which, funny, this is really funny with this, because we got a U-Boy and a Bracelet Girl in this set. But what's funny is that these 2 characters never met in the anime. Ruri is the only Bracelet Girl that never had interacted with Yugioh once. Yugioh interacted with all of the other Bracelet Girls except for Ruri, which is kind of funny. Now, we already know what would have happened if Yugioh actually met Ruri. You wouldn't have thought it was Rin, and then probably got smacked because that wasn't the case. But, you know, you still got those funny moments. You know, Yuzu slapping him with a fan, and then you have Selena actually punching him in the face. So that was kind of funny as well. But they never interacted with each other, but they're actually sharing a pack, so that's actually kind of hilarious from there. And then you have Sherry being the oddball on the whole thing because she came from 5Ds, not Arc 5. That would be actually funny if it was all Arc 5, but you have those 2 characters as well. And then you have Kaido, because Kaido, even though, yeah, he's a Zexal rep, but the card that we got is Galaxy Eye Cypher EX Dragon. That's from Arc 5. He used ciphers in the Arc 5 anime, not in Zexal, so technically he's part of the rep for Arc 5. And I think that's it. Is it 6? And maybe it's just 5. Let me know if I didn't. Oh, and Shun. Shun had it in there, so it is 6, because you have Rin, Shun, Yugioh, Ruri, Yugioh, and then you have Kaido. So, yeah, there's 6 reps from Arc 5, which actually is a lot, which, to be fair, Arc 5 has a lot of reps that you can do, so I'm not really surprised on that. Hopefully we get more of the other series as well, because I think we only got one. We got one for Duel Monsters for Yugi. We have one for, well, actually now 2 for GX, because Cyrus is getting supports. We didn't know that he's going to get support in one of the newer sets. 5Ds, you had Yusei and Aki, now Sherry. And then for Zexal, I think it's only Yuma. Yuma is the only one that's gotten support in Zexal, so would like to see more Zexal support. And not just, like, Zexal weapons or stuff like that, because he's getting 2 sets with Zexal weapon support. Like, do some other cards. Do some Photon monsters or something, man. Like, what the heck? But, and then you have Reigns with, like, Spectre. You have and I think that's it. I could be wrong on that one. Someone let me know if I'm missing any, sets from the anime that are actually had come out in the recent sets. But other than that, I think that's all of the ones that I can think of. But getting back to the Lyrilusc, I kind of went on there. Very excited for this new Lyrilusc support, and just to see what they're going to do in the metagame. I think they're going to be incorporated. I think there's a potential for all these cards getting incorporated. I think the only one that might not be incorporated is Prom Thrust, or at least in the metagame. Probably casually you would probably play this card, but in the metagame, I don't really think so. Or maybe just one copy, maybe, just to give a little extra boost, I guess. But I really don't see that card, which sucks. I think it has potential, but until I feel like people actually find a way to get the most out of that card, it probably is not going to be used. But with that being said, that is going to be it for this discussion. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thoughts on the new Lyrilusc support. Did you like this support? Did you think it was a really good support? Did you think it was okay support, or do you not think the cards were that good at all? And let me just know what your thoughts on just Ruri getting support in general. Did you think she was going to get support? I mean, when we knew that it was going to be 3 characters that use wind monsters, everyone knew it was going to be Ruri and Yugioh. I think the only character that didn't really know was Sherry. I don't think anyone thought Sherry was going to get support. But what are your thoughts on just Ruri getting support? I think it's really cool. I'm really glad that she got support. I'm glad it's Rin and Ruri that got support and not Serena and Yuzu. Not saying I don't want support for them. I mean, if Yuri gets a new boss monster, I think Selena or Serena, whatever you want to call them, from whether you watch the dub or sub, she would get Lunalight support. If Yugioh got a new upgrade, so would Yuzu with her Melodious. But I'm very glad it was these 2 that actually got the support. They deserved it, I feel like, way more than those 2 characters. But obviously, that's my opinion. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, guys, take care and have yourselves a great rest of your day.